So today I'm going to talk about the chaser-runner dynamic. I'm sure you've heard about this if we would watch tarot card readings or in general. I think this is kind of like popular knowledge in some ways. Um, and I'm going to talk about what it is and kind of why it happens. So my name is Crystal Hoban, aka Crystal Clear Mystic, and the chaser runner dynamic, which is also called in psychological terms the pursuer distancer dynamic. So this is actually a really well-known dynamic. And as a lot of you know, I used to be a marriage and family therapist, and I did relationship counseling. I still do it very part-time. And this is a really big dynamic that they talk a lot in couples therapy. When I used to do it a lot, it was pretty prevalent in almost every single situation. This idea that there's one partner who chases and runs after another partner who distance themselves and runs. So the idea behind this dynamic is that both people are feeling triggered or feeling overwhelmed emotionally in some way, but yet they respond differently to the trigger or the emotional reaction. So if we start with the chaser is somebody who feels like they need to prove their love. They are somebody who needs to prove that they are needed in relationships. They're usually seen as like the fixer or somebody who feels like they need to overdo to receive love. So they don't feel lovable. They usually feel like they need to do something to receive love, right? So that's why they're chasing to prove that they are good enough or to prove that they deserve attention and love. Okay. And then we have the runner or the distancer. And this individual is someone who is really overwhelmed by emotion in general. A lot of the times, these are people who are emotionally unavailable. And they may or may not be aware of this, but that's what this is. And so, when something comes towards them with a lot of emotional backing, they feel really overwhelmed and they shut down. And a lot of the times, they freeze and then they run, they flight, right? We're talking about it in the way of like trauma triggers. And so this individual is overwhelmed by a lot of emotions, doesn't know how to handle it. It overwhelms their nervous system and they cannot stay calm and centered when something like this is happening around them. A lot of the times it will also turn into this like feeling of I'm like like I can't handle this. It's like a feeling of like I'm not good enough, right? And so there's like that kind of narrative or self-talk that usually comes in for them is like I'm not good enough, which is why this is happening, or I feel criticized or whatever this case is around that, right? So I get defensive and I turn into my shell and I close myself off, I become nonverbal, I run away, to protect myself because I am completely overwhelmed and I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to take care of this, right? And if you noticed in both of those explanations of the runner and the chaser, I talked about fixing. And so it's very interesting because both of these ways of acting and behaving are actually coming from the same place. I'm not good enough. I did something wrong, right? I need to fix this. I can't fix this, right? So at the core, the wounding or the issue that is bringing up this reaction or response is really the same. They're just responding differently. And that really has to do with kind of like what you experienced growing up around like how these kind of situations were taken care of or resolved, right? So, if you were somebody who felt like you had to overdo to receive love and then you were able to like get that person to meet you in that space, you're more likely to be a chaser. If you were somebody who ran away and when you ran away those situations kind of dissolved or were over or done with and you were able to avoid having to deal with them at all, you were most likely a runner. And a runner is definitely somebody who really struggles to deal with the emotional stuff because they never really have, because of that avoidant tendency, right? That feeling of like shoving it under the rug, right? Not dealing with it. So they probably grew up in a family where there were like these big blowouts and then nobody talked about it and everything was just okay, right? Um so both of these dynamics, right, are not healthy in ways and also are indications that there's like a nervous system overactivation. So there's a lack of safety that they're feeling within themselves to be able to handle these situations. And there's a different reaction associated with it. And I think it's important to recognize that these are like survival ways of trying to survive, right? Like there is no ill will intention happening here. It really does feel very automatic. There's not much of like a choice or a thought that goes into this way of being for a lot of these people. It's very like automatic and just like the nervous system happens, right? And so when I talk about the nervous system, this is where the amygdala, which is in the middle of our brain, is reacting from this like fear based reaction or response of protection, right? And when the amygdala is active, every other part of our brain is inactive or off. So, the hippocampus, which is in the back of our mind, it holds memory, not active or on. Our prefrontal cortex, which does planning, not active or on. So, in these states, people very much are responding automatically. And they're responding from this place because it's the only way that their brain can respond, because there's a very physical component occurring, because this is how their brain has been wired over the repetition of kind of moving this way for so many times, for so many years, for some people, a lifetime. Okay. And so the only way to kind of overcome this is to really be able to learn how to regulate your system and find safety in relationships. So that means like being able to be honest when we're having an issue in a situation and tell them, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now and I really need to take a break, right? And being able to communicate with honesty and be direct in that way helps us to provide safety for ourselves and for our nervous system, for us to be able to, take that break and know that we can take care of and protect ourselves, so that we can be more open to having these conversations at a different point in time when we're more calm. So boundaries are like so important. Open communication is like so important. And, really being able to like understand where the other person is coming from. So I think that a lot of the times in these chaser and runner dynamics, is that, the chaser is like nonstop and needs to fix the problem right away, right? And part of that is like a codependent kind of thing, a people pleasing kind of thing. This feeling that like I can't be okay until I resolve this issue. And so because they believe that, they're functioning out of that, right? Like I'm not allowed to feel better until this issue is okay and until we're resolved. And so they will push, 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 push for that for themselves, which understandable. Everybody wants to take care of themselves. But learning how to take a step back and recognize when you need to give somebody time to process because they're different than you is important as well, right? Um, this is a lot easier said than done to kind of maintain and manage these things. And I do think that it is helpful to get somebody to help you, but it also is really helpful for you to like be able to recognize that someone doesn't deal with things the same exact way that you do. You both are probably feeling the same thing and responding in different ways. And that's something I've really noticed as a couples therapist over the course of like the years I've been one, is that if someone's feeling something in a relationship, someone else is feeling that as well. Are they reacting and responding the same way? No, because you're different people, right? But regardless, same thing. So, these kind of reactions and responses really do run very deep. And if you want to heal this part of yourself, you're interested in understanding or learning more and learning how to regulate your nervous system, I do have a course in my bio. You can take a look there. And it's like an online course that can guide you through and help you. I also do that kind of work so I can help you as well if you want to work one on one. But The reality is that until you learn how to regulate your nervous system and take care of yourself through these moments, it's really going to be hard for you to even hear what somebody else is going through, let alone be able to give them space to deal with what they're going through. This really comes back to us learning how to take care of ourselves first and recognize like that we can do that and we don't need someone else to do that and we don't need a conversation to do that. We can do that for ourselves, and once we learn how to do that, then we engage in relationships very differently. So I really do hope that made sense. And I hope that that was helpful for somebody out there. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop them down. And I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are. Love and light.